Okay, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a really cool review for you. This is actually a first for the channel, the brand Fortis. So a little bit about Fortis. They were founded back in 1912. They're a Swiss-made brand, and basically their claim to fame was that they actually produced the world's first mass-produced automatic wristwatch. They're also known for their involvement in the Russian space program, as far as kind of, what have they done lately. That's really been kind of their big niche. But basically, their brand has been going through now some of the older styles and really resurrecting some of the more classic things that Fortis did, besides, just focusing only exclusively kind of on their, more current sporty, cosmonaut line. They actually have kind of rebroken everything down and kind of rearranged all of the models. And this particular piece is the Tycoon Chronograph. And I gotta say, I'm extremely impressed with it. It's really, really nice. So first off, a little bit about chronographs in general when you're looking at one. Some key features and design language. Of course, you're going to see those external pushers, and they're there to activate timing functions. There's going to be multiple subdials to measure elapsed time, often featuring an additional scale, or different additional scales, plural, depending kind of on the subgenre of watch. This one does not have a bunch of kind of subscales or anything like that, as far as a tachymeter, pulsometer, or anything like that. It's actually very true to the old 1940 styling that this watch was based off of. So it's a very clean and clear aesthetic there on the dial, which is really nice. So let's go ahead and zoom out and get this in hand. Okay, so as you can see, really, really nice here. I actually have the chronograph running. Ooh. Yeah, there it is. I don't know why my eyes kind of gazing away at that dial and the finish and the depth that just brings. Really beautifully done. So basically, this is the Tycoon Chronograph. Like I said, it's a retro throwback model to original Fortis designs from the 1940s. Now, the retail price on these is pretty expensive. They're actually $3,500. I think they come in right about $35-40. But you can find them basically now for right around, $13.99, which is pretty nice. And you can even get these from authorized dealers at these prices. So really cool that they're available for that price. Of course, if you're buying direct, you would definitely be paying a much bigger premium, and you're going to see some deals that are going to go kind of a wide range, because not too many people carry this piece. And then, of course, some people carry a good amount of stock, and they're just definitely trying to move units, and they're not too concerned about making a killing on every one. So I think definitely at the kind of street prices you'll find, in that $13.99, $1,400, $1,500, even up to $18. I think there's a great value. I think kind of in that upper tier around retail, not quite so sure. I think still definitely a great piece, but I mean, there are very few watches, especially from established brands, that I'm really thinking about ever getting at retail prices. So definitely, I think bang per buck, there's definitely a lot of value there. Now, the case size on this is a really classic 41 millimeter diameter, and it has a height of just 13.59 millimeters. Oh, let me get the crown straight there. So as you can see, really nice profile on it, not super thick like you'd find with like a Valjoux 7750, where you're going to be running 14, 15, 16 millimeters pretty much out of the box. Here, because of the modular movement, it actually is quite thin, and I think the actual kind of sandwich case there, where they have the really nice pronounced bezel, and then the equally pronounced case back, I think really creates a nice kind of visual play with that mid case, and shows you really that that is a thin case, you know, of course with the case back and then the bezel on top, especially with this double dome sapphire. It definitely does add thickness, but I think visually your eyes are captured and kind of captivated by that brushed center mid case there. Now, of course, the case is brushed and finished, and instead of kind of being brushed and finished and just being very simple, they went a very cool particular route and actually did where the bezel's fully is fully polished, and then basically the case is pretty much all brushed until you get underneath. There's some, you know, probably started out polished there, and then of course the case back's polished, the pushers are polished. Really, really nice. And then the sapphire, of course, is double dome, so as you can see, even at this really harsh angle, extreme clarity, no distortion, and you know, with this ultra clean and legible dial and just these fine details, it is definitely really nice to have a nice, well executed sapphire there, so you can actually catch this at just some great angles. Any angle, this thing's looking really just fantastic. Of course, the crown is signed. It is not a screw down crown, but you know, I think it really shouldn't be. It's not like this carries a lot of water resistance, so it does make it easier to wind, which is nice because it is not a screw down crown and it's not really a super sporty piece. Now the movement is actually something that's pretty special about the watch. It's a Swiss-made Dubois Dupraz 2020, or the DD 2020, which is basically a 2892 with a modular chronograph. So what that basically means is they take the 2892 movement, right? It's a very thin movement. You guys have seen it in my Mito Heritage watch, which is, I mean, it's like under 7 millimeters thick, which is really, really nice for an automatic piece. So basically within there, right, you just have the movement, and then you have another module that sits right on top that would control all of the chronograph features. Now, if that sounds a little familiar, it is, because ETA actually also does a movement where they have a modular chronograph that sits right on top of the 2892, except they call it a 2894. So we know this is good tech. So it's definitely a very cool idea. One of the drawbacks though is when you're looking, of course, here at the case back, you're not going to be able to see any of those mechanical workings. For the chronograph, you're just going to see basically a pretty standard affair and a pretty well decorated 2892 form. So of course it's going to have a ton more jewels because there's a ton more goodies in there. So 47 jewels. So definitely complex and a little bit different. It's and it actually reacts quite different in function as well than what you would see from, let's say, a Valjoux 7750, which is a dedicated and very classic chronograph movement. So the case back, of course, is very nice, really, I think, well proportioned there, great etching, nice display back. So you can see that beautiful rotor with the extra dressing on it there, that great perlage. Normally you'd see just some Geneva striping. So it was nice that Fortis kind of went the extra mile to really kind of dress and doll this piece up. Now, flipping it over and taking a closer look, let's actually, well, I'll let the hand run a little bit more so we can get a little bit more drama when we stop it and flip it back. But as you can see here, it has raised rose gold indices, and then it has a textured and curved satin dial. It has a blued chrono hand, and then basically the hour, minute there in second. Basically it has a really cool kind of layout, and what they did is you can see the hands are different for the second hand. So basically the chronograph functions, right, they're one color, they're the thermally blued. And let's go ahead and stop it for a second there, and as you can see, here's the 30-minute counter, and then the the 12 hour, and then we have the running seconds there that is still just ticking away. So the running seconds, and then so basically everything that tells the regular time is rose gold, and it also has that, you know, kind of more leaf shaped hand versus the more needle shaped hands for the chronograph feature. So basically whatever's tied to the chronograph, and you'll notice here when I reset it, that's all blue, and then the gold is for this the regular time, which is, I think, really nice cue there. It's not just colorful to be cute, or, you know, it's not purely aesthetics. There's actually a nice reason for it, and I think it makes it very readable, and of course it's just I think really user friendly. I think it makes sense. And there's a lot of times you'll have a chronograph and it's just going to be an absolute mess when it comes to all the hands, all the subdials, the layout. I think this one just has the great just room to breathe. Really fantastic spacing on the dial, and then of course the execution for the color scheme. You know, it's not just aesthetically pleasing, but it's also functionally, you know, well designed. So really nice on that side of the house. Of course, this is only water resistant, about 5 bar, which is 50 meters, but I mean, that's all I would really expect. Of course, it would be nice to have 100 meter water resistance, but hey, and that would be nice to have 200 meters water resistance. So I mean, it's always nice to have better things there, but it's not always the case, and I think 50 meters is definitely suits the type of wear this watch is going to see. Now, the water resistance apart, you know, of course, I think, you know, there's not too much here listed on the back. It's just, you know, fairly minimalist, and I think that suits the front as well. And I just think it's just a really clean setup. Not too many bells and whistles, but everything that it does have just has a really refined execution to it. You know, it's just really well done. So it doesn't have, you know, a bunch of Easter eggs and a bag of tricks attached, but for what it does do, it really excels at. So really nice on that side. Now the lugs here are a really nice classic 20 millimeter lug set, which is great because you find today there's so many times that for some reason watchmakers just use odd lug numbers, and I'm not a fan at all. This actually comes with more of a golden strap, padded leather strap, and it really ties into the rose gold theme here, and it really warms up the dial because it is kind of a creamy silver pearlescent look to it. But I chose to put it here on this Hirsch Duke, which is basically an alligator embossed leather strap, and I gotta say, I think it just makes it more wearable and just somehow dressier, and the ability to be more casual because now it's a blue color versus kind of that honey brown that you'll see on these factory straps. So I think this really dark blue you know, alligator print is really nice because it just adds some texture here to what otherwise is a very, you know, stark dial, which I don't have a problem with at all. But I think it just really sets the watch off and complements it really well. Of course, you could just put a regular, you know, padded kind of buffalo grain blue strap on here too. I think it would look great and probably make it feel a little bit more casual and a little bit more modern at the same time, but I feel like the leather really keeps it classy. So let's go ahead and get this on wrist. So as you can see on my 7¼ inch wrist, pretty standard affair, wears extremely well. I mean, of course, up close, I mentioned this in every video, everything looks huge. Any watch, I could put a 35 millimeter watch on my wrist, put it this close to the camera lens, it's gonna look ginormous. But Then you put it down here and you get a little bit more understanding of the kind of scale of the human wrist and the human hand that's involved, and also now you don't have the lens distorting anything, and you see that, you know, this 41 millimeter case is really nicely suited. It's very modern. Of course, it could be smaller. It'd be nice if it was maybe a 38, but one of the nice things is when it does have a wider diameter, the height just doesn't feel as evident, because it's just the weight is just a little bit better distributed. So, you know, like I have my 38 millimeter Hamilton khaki chronograph. It has a 7750 movement, and it's a nice big thick watch, but it is only 38 millimeters wide, so it wears that heft and it feels you know, very round on the wrist, where this is going to feel much smoother, ride a lot more flat, as you can see, and really just wear better in general. So really, really like it here on the wrist. Let's go ahead and let it rest there while I come up. Sorry about that. With some of my closing thoughts. So basically on wrist, you know, really classic proportions. Of course, you know, a chronograph, I think classic proportions cover all the way up to probably about 42 millimeters. Maybe even 43, depending on the type of watch. Well, I should say the subgenre of chronograph, whether depending how sporty it is and how many layers there are to the dial and everything. So, you know, I think it just wears really well, and it still maintains that classic look. And it feels solid, without feeling, you know, it's just feeling good because it's hefty and heavy. It feels solid, but it also feels thin, which is definitely a nice combination. As far as model variants go, this is the AM dial. Basically, Fortis has kind of a naming convention where they do AM and PM, a light dial versus a dark dial. So there's a black dial version, which is just a black and silver color scheme, which is the PM dial, and then this is the AM dial. As far as comparable models go, you know, there's the Young Hands Meister Telemeter Chronoscope, which is a really, really handsome piece. Very similar in spec, you know, has a similar modular movement as well, but you only get 2 registers on it. You don't get the 3rd register. So, I mean, that's something. I mean, of course, the aesthetics of a bicompax definitely still looks great too, but you don't have the functionality of having that 12-hour counter. Also, I'd say one of the little drawbacks of having that piece is, one, it has a plexidome crystal, a nice one, you know, and it's coated and everything, but it's not a sapphire. And then it has this odd 21 millimeter lug width, which is kind of just off-putting. And you can buy those direct for about you know, $2,190, so just under $2,200. And you know, so they're a little bit more expensive than this piece as well. And of course, then there's the other things to mention, you know, that it doesn't have a sapphire, and then it also has a 21 millimeter lug, which for a dressier watch, you're of course going to want to probably switch it on a bunch of different straps. So I think that's definitely something that plays a big role in it. Now, as far as to contrast that, you know, probably more on the more expensive side, you'd have something like maybe the Tag Heuer Carrera Caliber 18 Chrono, which also uses a similar, you know, movement, and then it also has a 2-register layout. But I mean, those retail for $6,300. So, and then even at a street price, you know, you're gonna get close to 4K basically for a watch that inside is pretty similar and finished on the outside also pretty similar. So that's something to think about. You know, really the bottom line, this is really just a truly unique offering, you know, and it's many really quirky details from, you know, from a brand with a truly underappreciated horological provenance. It's finished to a high enough level where even those not familiar with the Fortis name can really recognize the fine quality level of execution. So, you know, I think even a passerby that might not know anything about Fortis, they might not know that, hey, these watches have been to space and they produced the first mass-produced automatic wristwatch. They'll see this and they'll understand, like, wow, that is a nice watch. You know, it has those great applied indices that stand out. Just the color play on here is just so dynamic. But at the same time just so well chosen that everything just really flows. Really quickly, I'll run the chronograph for you again and just mention the action. It's definitely not as stiff or tactile as you would, you know, compared to a 7750. It's a lighter click feeling, definitely. And actually, one of the other main differences is as the seconds hand is running here on the chronograph, it's actually a running counter here. So it's not like when it gets to 12, it's gonna do the little thud click over 1 minute. These are just gonna slowly kind of drift over as this reads, similar to just kind of the regular time telling. So that's definitely something that's different and that's not very common. Some people might think that's extra nice. Some people might think, oh, well, that's really not what I'm used to, and I really like, you know, when it sweeps right past 12, then I get that nice audible click. For me, I just think it's I don't really see it as a negative or a positive. It still does the job and I like it. So as you can see there, it's already moved to that piece and there you have it. So let's go ahead, click, reset. All right, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm really liking this piece. Let me know your guys' experiences with Fortis, your guys' thoughts on this particular piece in the Tycoon. Really cool name, also, by the way. And if you like the video, please do hit like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys. Bye.